Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 688. My opponent kicked off with e4 here. I played e6, the French defense. He goes d4, I go d5. These are all the most normal moves. And now knight c3, the top choice here, although there's several good alternatives to knight c3. But it is a fun way to play, and the way I like to play as white myself. And then as black, I like to play the Winawer variation, although you can see knight f6, the classical French, is actually the most popular move at this point. But bishop b4, the Winawer variation, leads to a lot of nice sharp play, very interesting. So white avoids the complicated lines of the Winawer by playing bishop d3. But, well, after looking at this game, I don't think, particularly the opening phase, I don't think this is good for anything more than basically equality for white. I don't think white has any kind of advantage over this, because my moves all seemed very natural at this point. He's sort of encouraging me to take the pawn, so I do, and then I get my knight out with a tempo. So I think white kind of gives up his opening advantage here, although he gets a kind of a unique position with the bishop on f3. It's unique, but it's not necessarily good. And I continue, I'm just playing moves that seem natural to me. I have no idea that this is an opening line, but it turns out the moves I'm making are the top choices in the database, so that's a sign that this is not presenting any big challenges to black. So I can't really recommend this opening line for white. Let's see, he played knight e2, and I played c5. And it turns out that e5 is the most popular choice here in the database, but this just leads to a pretty dull position. He takes, the queens come off, and a knight to g4. This is actually a pawn sacrifice line, but let's see, bishop takes, queen takes, so there's a threat of taking that pawn and checking the king and rounding up this pawn, so that's the only way for white to stay a pawn up. But if you look at this position, in compensation for the pawn, black has the bishop pair, black has active pieces. This rook can come out here with a check at any time, and white can't castle because of the exchange. So, and his king had to move when he took back. So anyway, it's a good compensation for black, but no more than really equality for black either. So, the way I played was fine. It wasn't the top choice in the database, but I looked at it with the chess engine, and this is also okay. Let's see, he played bishop to e3. If white wants to try and get anything out of this position, it seems like white has to castle here. Bishop e3 is another move that kind of forces some exchanges, which seemed to be my opponent's plan in the early part of this game. He just seemed to want to exchange a lot of stuff. So anyway, taking is probably the best move here. And then queen takes. The chess engine at first likes queen takes. This also once again leads to a bunch of exchanges, although I can throw in knight to c6 first. And then after he takes here, then the queens come off. And oh, how's it go here? Knight takes d4. He takes back with the knight, not the bishop. Right, I take the pawn, so he's now threatening to take on c6. And then I get to take his knight off with check and develop my bishop. So once again, it's another pawn sack line, but look at white's miserable pawns here. It's hard to see any kind of advantage for white in this position either. So yeah, all in all, I just don't like this for white. Let's see, he took with the bishop, but this doesn't lead to anything either. Once again, I get a knight developed with tempo, the bishop retreats, and I played a6. So neither of us really want to trade queens, it appears. He castled, and I went queen c7. Or maybe he was obviously allowing the queen trade, but he wants me to take so he can get a rook on the open file. And for that reason, I'm not going to take. Let's see. I could have, however, continued in this position with knight e5. Might have been an interesting way just to continue to allow the queen trade and also get this knight to an active square. Anyway, he kicked the bishop. I dropped back, and he developed his knight over here. I played b5. Want to develop my bishop to b7. He went queen e2, lining up with his he went queen e2, getting the queen off the back rank and connecting the rooks, and also getting the queen off of the d file, I guess, where I have a rook coming pretty quickly. Let's see, I go bishop b7. That was my idea here. He puts a rook on the d file, and I really can't allow the d file to go uncontested. So I have to put a rook here. Well, let's see, I use my a rook as well. And he exchanged, took back, and then he challenged. And I could just keep on trading here. I decided to play knight e5 at this point. It's probably an okay move. And he decided to trade off the light squared bishop and trade off the rook. And then he played queen to d1. And, well, the chess engine wants me to play bishop e7 here, which is a way to keep the queens on. And it thinks black has some slight edge. I guess I have a little more space. It's hard to see that there's a whole lot here for black, although there's ideas of the knight hopping into c4 like in the game. But also like in the game, this bishop can always retreat to c1 and defend everything. But, well, if any side is better, black is slightly better here. Let's see, I went queen d7. I guess I gave up at this point, avoiding trades. And he took the queens off. And, you know, I'm still just a little bit better here. I was eyeing this c4 square and thinking this would be something pretty good for me. Let's see, he hops into e4. I go to c4. And he drops his bishop back to c1. And I guess can't really get a whole lot out of this position. I'm pushing a little too hard here with this f5 move. I'm creating some weaknesses. Let's see, he drops his knight back to d2. And I should probably just trade out here. But I tried to keep it interesting with knight d to b6, holding on to my knight. He trades once again and plays b3, kicking my knight. And that kind of puts an end to any kind of activity I had over here. I was thinking, you know, with this knight coming in, harassing the pawns, maybe I could pick up this pawn. But everything is protected by his bishop. And now he's chasing my knight away, so his bishop can activate. And I have some pawn weaknesses over here. So the chess engine says I should just drop back to e5 and continue to play on in roughly an equal position. I tried to you know, create some interest here with the bishop f6, counterattacking. And apparently there's some way for white to get a slight edge here with not moving the... Oh, yeah, by grabbing a pawn here. This is kind of interesting. So, I mean, my knight is hanging, his knight is hanging, so he can sort of get away with that desperado move, giving up the knight for a pawn. Then he grabs my knight, and I get the pawn back. So the material stays even, but he does have the outside passed pawn. So if he could arrange to trade bishops, he might have a winning endgame. But it doesn't look like he can do that. I mean, the chess engine still rates this as about even, so at most a slight edge for white. Let's see, in this position after I played bishop to f6, he went knight to e2. Yeah, he just retreated his knight away from my bishop, which was attacking it, and now I have to retreat my knight. Let's see, he went knight f4, hitting my weak pawn here, but I bring my king forward to defend it. This is still all okay. It's actually... where he went knight d3 here. Yeah, it's this next move, e5. This is actually the first move that's maybe considered a mistake, and it gives a bit of an edge to white. You know, the advantage was very slight in any of these previous positions, but well, now white has a little something, and I think this is something to keep in mind in the endgame. I mean, you're always supposed to push your passed pawns, so this is sort of the right idea in general concept. But, well, you always have to proceed slowly in an endgame. And whereas in the middle game, sometimes you're in a rush to push those pawns forward, open things up while you have some temporary advantage in position or space or development. But in the endgame, you more often want to move slowly and prepare these moves. So let's see, the line from the chess engine goes like this: knight to d5, king to f1, knight to c3, plunking that knight on a good square. Let's see, he could hop into c5 and then pushing the a pawn forward like this. And it seems like this is fine for black, and maybe with a slight edge with some space advantage and the blockade on these pawns and the way my knight is keeping his his bishop tied up. But anyway, the general concept is to proceed slowly, not to rush with these pawn pushes. So now he can exploit this, and he does. He starts out with knight c5, forcing me to push on with a5. And now he can win a pawn here with knight b7. The thing is, if I push this pawn forward, he's got knight to d6 check, and that's a fork, and he wins the b pawn. So in fact, there's no way for me to save a pawn here. I'm just going to go down a pawn. King e6 is the best reply, giving up this pawn and activating the king and getting the central pawns rolling. And it's still not clear, but white has the edge here. So anyway, he missed this chance. Instead, he played bishop b2. And I moved my king to e7 to get away from that knight fork. I had spotted this idea by this point. He dropped his knight back to d3, and now my king comes forward to d6, holding on to everything. And so now the tables have turned, and I'm doing fine once again. And he makes a second mistake. His first one was not winning the pawn when he had the chance. He played bishop b2. This leaves us in a position which is about even, or maybe better for black, and then f4. After this, I really should have a winning advantage. And, well, you'll see with all the question marks that we actually go back and forth. So, well, endgames are tough. You really need to slow down and calculate. But this is all good for black, and I have a winning edge for a while here. I push the pawn forward, which is correct. He trades. He probably doesn't want to give up that good diagonal, but this is just helping me. He dropped his knight back to b2. And now my mistake is playing b4. I should just bring my king forward to c5. And we'll see similar ideas later in the game, so I'm not going to give any more detail there. Anyway, I pushed on with b4, once again, kind of rushing things a little bit. So another example of how you should proceed slowly in the endgame. He took, I took, and this is what I saw. I saw that I would have one pawn holding back two, and I thought this would be good. But, well, he can just shore up his defenses with g3. And let's see, I can come in with knight to d5, but I can't really break through, it appears. He can keep me locked out with knight to d1 and hold this position. So it seems like this early pawn push, this premature pawn push to b4 has given up my winning chances. But he gives them back to me with this imprecise move, king to f2, although a very logical move that you want to get your king into the game. But now I can start with king to c5, which is good. He drops his knight back. He needs to reorganize it and try and defend some of these squares here. And then I need to proceed next with knight to d5. My king d4 move, although once again kind of logical, putting the king in a good square, is not the winning idea here. Here's the winning idea. See, I play knight to d5. He has to take a move out to defend that pawn, and then I come in with king to d4. So just getting my knight to a slightly better position before bringing my king in. And, well, this is what you have to spot, and one reason why endgames are difficult to play. This looks like everything is fine from White's point of view, that he's blocked my access with his king and his knight. I can't get in here, and I can't make any progress. But the point is, this is actually a Zugzwang position. Everything that White plays at this point weakens his position somewhat. So just for an example, if he were to play king to e2, just to try and keep me blocked out, I can come in here with the check. And after the trade, my king gets to this critical c3 square. And between my king here and this passed pawn, I'm going to win that endgame. So he can't play king e2. He could try king back to e1, relying on his knight to control these squares. But now in this position I can play knight to e3, and if he trades, then once again my king comes forward, and if he doesn't trade, then I can take his knight. If the knight moves, then I can step into c3 with my king. So in either way I'm penetrating, and it's a one endgame from that point. So but like I said, it's hard to find these kind of moves in general, not just in blitz games, but especially in blitz games where you have to calculate. This is just calculating one or two moves ahead, knight d5, king d4, but recognizing that there's a Zugzwang situation, that your opponent has, even though he apparently defends everything, he has no good move, and you just put the burden on him to find a move. his position falls apart. Anyway, I play king d4, and now he needs to block me out with this move knight e3. This would actually, this is the drawing idea for white. Can get this knight to a good square, defend the pawn, and now his king has a couple of squares it can move to, so he can sort of mark time here, and I can't really make progress from that position. So he went king e2, and once again, I'm winning. And I am winning for quite a few moves here. So let's go forward. I'm playing logical moves now, bringing the knight into d5, hitting the pawn. Let's see. He played king to d2. I guess there was no great defense for the pawn. He could have tried b3 here, but then once again I have this knight c3 check idea, and that would be good for me and allow my king to penetrate. So he stepped away from the check with king d2, and he's just keeping me blocked out, but that gives up a pawn, and this is a winning advantage at this point. Now he tries g3. Just drop my knight back. He plays h3. I go f4, opening things up here and trying to make it easier for me to promote my pawns. This is all good. Let's see, he tried c3 here. This is kind of a desperation move, but it does liberate his knight and give him a passed pawn, which I underestimated. Now I play e3 check. He goes king c2, and I play knight d5 here, which gives up the win. So anyway, there's a nice tactic here that wins the game. So put on your endgame tactics hat and check this position out. See if you can spot the line for black. It's basically a couple moves deep. So see if you can find the winning sequence for black here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. This is worth spending some time on. This is a very useful tactic to know. So try and remember this position and search it a little bit before giving up and listening to the answer. Okay, the answer is first you push the pawn forward, and the reason I didn't play that is because white can win that pawn. I can't come in and defend it at this point. I have to keep pushing it. But keeping on pushing it is the right answer, because when you queen with check, you win the knight. And not only have I won the knight, but I'm also rounding up his only passed pawn here. So this is actually an easy win from this point with a knight and an extra pawn. So that would be the win. And I missed it because I didn't look more than one move ahead. You got to spot this check. Queening with check distraction tactic, a very common endgame tactic allowing me to pick up the knight. So it's key that I'm already attacking the knight in this position that makes that tactic work. Anyway, I played knight d5 thinking this was a winning king and pawn endgame. I thought, well, he's going to have to take this pawn, I can take this pawn, but it's not winning, and in fact I have to be careful just to get a draw. Because, well, for one thing, the exchange draws my king away, and now his king comes forward, and now my path to round up this pawn is pretty slow, and the black is just going to come over here and round up my pawns very quickly. And so I mean white is going to come over here and round up my pawns quickly. So it turns out I am just in time, and maybe more than just in time. I'm in time to hold the draw, but there's nothing more than a draw. I just have to get over here to the rook file, and or close enough, and this is a draw. As the king goes this way, I can step in underneath and get to this blocking square, and if the king goes the other way, then I can continue to face off against the king and just keep the king imprisoned over here. It doesn't matter if he moves his pawn forward. Eventually his king runs out of moves, so there's just no way for him to queen that pawn. So we agreed to a draw here, but pretty interesting game. Hope you guys liked this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.